Tonight on Bridge City News, Agriculture Minister Devin Dreeshen was in Lethbridge on a fact-finding mission. We caught up with him to discuss current farming laws. Whoop Up Days continues, and today video journalist Loris Alexander headed down to the grounds to take in some of the excitement. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to discuss the plight of the two Canadians still being held captive in China.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Robbins.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Newdorf was inside of City Hall when council members voted against Councillor Blaine Higgins' motion of asking the province to halt funds for the safe consumption site at Arches. Newdorf says he wasn't surprised by the 5-4 vote.
I think it addressed how significant an issue this is for Lethbridge, and I think it highlights the reason or the need for that review panel that the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions has put forward. I think what I really want to highlight is the focus needs to be on the treatment of these individuals. The end goal needs to be to get them off of illegal and illicit drugs, because if we don't have that, then we create this rotating door, and we're not truly addressing it. So we may be prolonging their life, but until we can get them off these drugs with treatment and the rest of that and get them back to being productive members of society, we haven't really addressed it. So I think that's the point that almost everyone will agree to, whatever side of the issue that you are on.
The province has announced plans to speak with people in Lethbridge about supervised consumption services. The review committee will be in our city September 4th and 5th at the Coast Lethbridge Hotel from 6 till 9 p.m. Another public session before that will take place Tuesday, September 3rd in Medicine Hat. Bridge City News also spoke with Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Newdorf to weigh in on all of the Bill 9 protest rallies that have been taking place across the province this summer.
It's something that we're watching. I am very aware of it for Lethbridge and area. There's a lot of public sector workers, and we really value them and need them, particularly on the front lines. The Bill 9 was just meant to defer that till we could get the information back from the Blue Ribbon panel in regards to the province's finances. So we want to have all of that information in hand before we begin the process negotiating with one of the 20 unions or a couple of them, and have information changed before we negotiate with the rest. So we want to have the chance to negotiate with all of them at the same time.
Newdorf says he has not yet had the opportunity to see the Blue Ribbon Panel report, but says it should be made public later in the fall. Alberta's Minister of Agriculture, Devin Dreeshen, was in town yesterday, along with Nathan Newdorf. The UCP government is consulting with farmers from all over the province. Dreeshen took questions from local farmers and discussed the impact that the previous NDP government had on farming safety and regulations. He stressed the importance of face-to-face communication when it comes to farming laws and protocol.
Practicality of Bill 6 just wasn't there. So that's something that we want to make sure that when we repeal it and replace it with something that could actually be something that farmers would actually be able to be in compliance with. And I think a lot of that is an education component, that before farmers go out and do a job or do a work, they have an understanding of this is a culture of safety in which you could go and do farm work. And that's, I think, something, rather than a prescriptive code of you have to do these things before you do this type of job, I think is something that we've heard at every stop along the way. Calf operators and agriculture, crop agriculture in every corner of the province. But I think that the intensive livestock and the irrigation is a unique thing to southern Alberta, and it's been a great boom. You see lots of processors that are down here as well. So it's southern Alberta. It's also very hot like it is today, and very jealous that there are guys out rolling with their combines, being a farmer myself. So.
Well, what I'm hearing is that they want a voice. They want to be part of it, part of the discussion, part of the work going forward, and this gives them the avenue to do that. So they're just really excited that they get that chance to share their stories, share their thoughts, and have that part of the input. So I'm really proud of that.
Dreeshen also visited Taber and near Picture Butte this week before he headed to Grand Prairie. A market analyst says there is a lot of price uncertainty for farmers as they prepare their harvest for 2019. FarmLink Marketing Solutions' Neil Townsend says because of trade concerns, farmers should be patient when selling wheat. Townsend says a good target price for wheat is $6.30 per bushel. He says more optimism for canola, seeing the demand is rising around the world for vegetable oil. Townsend says the target price for canola is $10 per bushel or better. He adds there's also a lot of uncertainty around pulse crops because of high tariffs in India. For peas, he sees a target price of $6.25 per bushel, but the current market is below that level. We'll have today's commodity numbers coming up later in the business report. The provincial government has put together an independent panel to provide advice on developing the future curriculum for students. Education Minister Adriana LaGrange made the announcement at an elementary school in Edmonton. The work was a starting point for public dialogue in early 2020. LaGrange says the panel will focus on jurisdictional research and previous curriculum engagement feedback. The advisory panel includes representatives from the kindergarten to grade 12 and post-secondary. It'll be chaired by Angus McBeath, a former superintendent for the Edmonton Public Schools. Around 19 firefighters from 4 stations were called out to a house fire on Selkirk Road West. Upon arrival, firefighters found a garage fully engulfed in flames, with the blaze spreading to the residents, trees, and a nearby property.
Yesterday morning at about 5:10 a.m., we received a 911 call of a working structure fire over on the west side. Crews arrived, the garage was fully involved. The family, a family of 6, was outside. They were all out of the home. The fire spread from the garage to the house. Damage, the garage is a total loss. We have damage into the house. It burned through the back end of the house, closer to the garage, damaged bedrooms, and then a lot of smoke and water damage throughout. The fire, it was an accidental fire, nothing malicious or anything there. All we want to remind people about that is when people are doing things like whether they're working in their garage with blowtorch or even smoking in their garage, be careful of the wind that could possibly blow an ash into a garbage can or anything other combustible. There's a lot of fuels, a lot of chemicals in a garage that could lead to a fire. So we just want people to be aware what they're doing when they're having a cigarette or doing anything like that could help prevent a fire from happening.
The investigation revealed the fire was accidental, but firefighters had a reminder again about the importance of safely disposing smoking materials. The estimated damage was around $150,000, and fortunately, there were no injuries. A Southern Alberta man convicted of sexual assault against his former girlfriend has been sentenced to 5.5 years behind bars. Judge Eric Brooks handed down his sentence to Jesse Allen Nielsen at Lethbridge Provincial Court yesterday. The defense sought 4.5 years, and the Crown was seeking 7.5. During the 3-day trial, Nielsen was found guilty of 3 counts of assault, single counts of sexual assault and harassment. An appeal hearing is set for next February. RCMP in Sylvan Lake responded to a possible drowning. Early reports say 2 adult males were in inner tubes when a wave knocked both of them off of their tubes. One male was helped out of the water by people who were close by on a dinghy, but the other male went under and did not resurface. A search for the male continued today by the RCMP, Fire Department, and Fish and Wildlife. Fast food always tastes better when it's for a good cause. For every A&W Teen Burger purchased today, $2 will go to the Lethbridge MS Society. Ainsley O'Reilly headed to a local A&W, and she explains why your purchase will go beyond lunch.
A&W has been collecting donations for the last 5 weeks, and a delicious teen burger isn't the only way you can donate today.
People can donate by rounding up at the till. They can purchase little paper cutouts, and all proceeds from those cutouts also goes directly to the MS Society of Canada towards research.
According to the MS Society of Canada, the autoimmune disease affects 1 in every 385 Canadians. Mauro Catoni came in for a burger this afternoon. He's lived with a similar autoimmune disease for over 30 years.
I made the best of a bad situation rather than a bad situation making the best of me. There was no formal diagnosis of what happened to me. I joined the MS Society because I believe that's the closest disease that I have.
The disease caused him to lose his hearing too.
At that time, I was in a lot of distress because I went from becoming a teacher at Nicholas Sharon doing very well, that all of a sudden here I was and I could not hear.
In spite of it all, Catoni taught himself to sign, got a master's degree, and became the first deaf student to graduate from the U of L. At the time, he was the first deaf person in the world to hypothesize using your sensory brain to facilitate people's composition skills.
The researchers indicated that people that read the writing out loud to themselves, they were better writers. They made they fix their mistakes more easily.
Mauro invites everyone to a bocce ball tournament he's hosting on September 1st to raise money for MS. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
One of the biggest family festivals in Lethbridge continues at Exhibition Park. Whoop Up Days features a midway, lots of games and entertainment, including live concerts. As video journalist Loris Alexander explains, there's a lot of work that goes into putting on this 4-day festival.
From having all the supplies, all the syrups to make the slushies, and having all the machines working, properly maintained, and having the trailer properly set up and certified to be able to give a better service to the clients.
It's a lot of work when we're actually putting up the bubble, because we have to put it up, and when we're going to a different location we have to tear down. So it's a lot of work that we put in.
To produce the lemonade, for it to be in the best quality, we have to go with a certain formation that always works.
I just start my mornings thinking of how much of a good time the kids are gonna have. Like, they come to the Superjet coaster and always smile and start a good day. So that's one of my main reasons of waking up every day to come here and start my ride and do the inspections and have everything safe.
This is all about the 5 days of fun that Lethbridge and region get to experience, but it is months and countless hours of preparation. Really, as soon as this one rolls out, we'll start preparing for next year.
Whoop Up Days is in its 122nd year, and as you can see, there's a lot of time, work, effort, and money that goes into putting on an event such as this. It's a nice end to the summer, so if you haven't been here yet, you should come down and check out the food and the rides and everything this has to offer. For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
Edmonton City Council heard from the public today about a proposal to ban conversion therapy in that city. The neighboring cities of St. Albert and Spruce Grove recently banned the practice. Conversion therapy attempts to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity through counseling or sometimes even shock therapy. The City of Edmonton is considering a bylaw that would allow the city to revoke the business license from anyone found to be performing conversion therapy. Not all are in favor, however, as some say the ban would infringe upon religious rights. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo arrived on Parliament Hill today, meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau ahead of the upcoming G7 summit. Some of the hot-button issues to be discussed include relations with both China and the Iranian regime.
We will, of course, be bringing up the plight of the two Canadians in China and both thanking the Americans for their support on that issue and continuing to talk how we move forward on that. We'll also be talking about trade and how important it is to continue to create a global trading system that works for everyone, including for our countries. But lots of things to talk about, lots of issues to address, and I'm very pleased to have Mike Pompeo here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for hosting me here today. I know you're heading off tomorrow for an important set of meetings. I know we'll talk about some of those same things today, and I want to reiterate, we need to get the USMCA wrapped up. We need to get it done. We need our parliaments both to ratify them. It'll be good for the people all across North America. And please do know that our team is focused on helping those two Canadians be released. China needs to honor the commitments it's made to the world, and it's our expectation they'll do so, and we're working on it diligently. It's wrong that they're being held.
A new poll says 6 in 10 Americans disapprove of U.S. President Donald Trump's overall performance. The new poll, however, finds some solid support of his handling of the economy.
So our new poll shows that 36% of Americans approve of this president. That's just 36%. At the same time, 6 in 10, 61%, disapprove of his job performance. Now, those are not good numbers. President Donald Trump, of course, faces re-election in 14 months. This is not where any president wants to be, but it's actually a pretty familiar place for Trump. So Trump is underwater on virtually every major issue. You can go down the list on immigration, healthcare, foreign policy, gun policy. About 6 in 10 voters disapprove of his job performance. The one relative bright spot is the economy, where almost half, it's 46%, of voters do approve of his performance on the economy. That overall concerns about this president's character, the way he communicates, the way he tends to be divisive on some issues, really outweighs any benefit or that they're seeing from the economy.
Here's a miraculous story. All 10 people on board a small jet escaped injury after the aircraft aborted its takeoff at a Northern California airport, went off the runway, and burst into flames.
Once we found out that there were no passengers on board and all passengers were accounted for, the Oroville Fire Department was able to mitigate the grass fire rather quickly and focus on the actual fuselage of the aircraft that was burning.
The Billy Graham Rapid Response Team and Samaritan's Purse are offering help for immigrant families along the U.S.-Mexico border. At the centers, thousands of exhausted migrants receive food, showers, and shelter. This is a sample of their journey.
And we are helping these little ones and these parents and these families. We want to share the hope that we have in Jesus Christ. We're at the Respite Center, and it's a coalition that is here that started this in April, helping the people here. The Border Patrol brings them here. They are coming here legally. A lot of them are getting away from a lot of violence and a lot of problems. Some of the schools have shut down because it's not safe. Some have come from Honduras and Guatemala and Argentina and Brazil and Mexico and the Congo, Africa. You know, I don't know what's harder, seeing them come or seeing them go. But it's much better to see them all fed and cleaned and have some hope when they leave. This is what Jesus would do for his people, and he did that in the Bible. He fed them and taught the gospel, and we share that hope that we have in Jesus, that they have to have their eyes fixed on him.
Nice to see Christian organizations helping out once again. A mostly cloudy and cooler day for Whoop Up days in Lethbridge, and there's a chance of a shower or two tonight. Complete weather details are coming up. We had clouds and showers in some areas in southwestern Alberta today. Tonight, a chance of thunder showers developing and a low near 9 degrees. Tomorrow, the clouds should begin clearing out and we should see a high of 27. Mainly sunny and 27 as well on Saturday, the last day for Whoop Up days. Sunday, the clouds return along with a 60% chance of rain and a high of 21. Monday, a mixture of sun and cloud and a high again near 21 degrees. Tuesday, a slight chance of showers and the mercury dropping to 17. Wednesday, a high-pressure system returns, bringing lots of sunshine and a high gain near 17. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 25, with an average low of 10. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1976 at 34 degrees, and the record low was a chilly 0 in 1992. Sunrise was at 6:32, sunset 8:37. Let's see how tomorrow's shaping up across the country now. It'll be mainly cloudy and 19 in Victoria, a chance of showers and 21 for Vancouver. Overcast and 23 degrees for Calgary on Friday. Increasing clouds and 21 for Edmonton. Rain and 22 is on tap for Regina. Mainly sunny and 22 degrees as well for Saskatoon tomorrow. A mixture of sun and cloud and 26 degrees for Winnipeg. Just a few clouds and 23 for Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. Expect a high near 26 under a mainly sunny sky in Fredericton, New Brunswick on Friday. A good chance of showers and 24 for both Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Charlottetown, PEI. And at St. John's, Newfoundland, expect rain and a high near 22 degrees tomorrow. As you've heard on BCN, the go-ahead has been given to begin construction for the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, but many, including Premier Jason Kenney and our own Brian Lilly, say the project still faces many obstacles.
The idea that this pipeline will be done in 2022 is, well, a pipe dream, pardon the pun. I'd love to see it done by then. I'd love to see the construction get underway. But when you have so many groups looking to stop this, and the courts are just ripe for them, and we don't have a federal government that has the backbone to try and help push it through and invoke federal powers, I don't see it happening.
Catch the full interview with Mr. Lilly discussing the potential of the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion being built. That's coming up after business news. SNC-Lavalin stock fell again as Standard & Poor's downgraded its credit rating to junk status. Shares in the engineering giant closed down another 24 cents to $16.90 per share in trading on the TSX. S&P cutting SNC-Lavalin's rating to BB- from BBB- means it could be costlier for the firm to borrow money. The downgrade comes with a company already in the crosshairs of a political controversy and on the brink of a criminal trial on corruption charges connecting to business dealings in Libya. Company shares have hit successive 15-year lows since it reported losses of over $2 billion on August 1st. Twitter has suspended more than 200,000 accounts. It believes they were part of a Chinese government influence campaign targeting the protest movement taking place in Hong Kong.
So the important thing to think about when we look at what Facebook and Twitter have done in the last 2 days is distinguish between the content of what's being shared and the behavior of these accounts. And so what Facebook and Twitter are really looking at is the behavior of the accounts, what they call coordinated and authentic behavior. So that could be things like bots that are spreading information. It could be spam. It could be accounts that are set up and acting in unison to spread a particular message. It could be people who have been banned prior and who are trying to evade those bans. And so that is a lot more tractable and easy to kind of understand in terms of behavior on a platform than content. And so that's, I think, what we're going to expect to see as time goes on in terms of what Facebook and Twitter are doing to try to reduce the amount of misinformation on the platforms.
Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, a Southern Alberta man convicted of sexual assault against his former girlfriend has been sentenced to 5.5 years in jail. Judge Eric Brooks handed down the sentence to Jesse Allen Nielsen at Lethbridge Provincial Court yesterday. An appeal is set for February of next year. Recent polls show the gap has closed considerably between the Liberals and the Conservatives. Political reporter Brian Lilly has details next. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News Community Calendar. Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered recovery program for any hurt, hang-up, and habit. This group meets Friday nights at the Park Meadows Baptist Church. The evening begins at 6 p.m. with supper and follows with an opportunity to share and connect with others in small groups. For more information, visit celebraterecovery.ca. The 11th annual Care for Kids Golf Tournament is taking place Thursday, August 29th at Paradise Canyon Golf Resort, benefiting the Lethbridge Food Bank and the Canadian Tire Jumpstart program. $20,000 of the proceeds will go directly to children in our community to help them participate in sports and activities. For details on how to take part as a player or sponsor, visit lethbridgefoodbank.ca. Are you going through divorce or separation? Find support and encouragement with Divorce Care, a support group that will be meeting weekly, beginning Tuesday, September 10th at City Light Church from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Cost is $30 for the workbook. For more information, visit divorcecare.org or call John and Sandy Dick at 403-892-7046. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
A story we've been following on Bridge City News is how the Liberals recently stopped the Ethics Committee from calling the Ethics Commissioner forward to testify in the report that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau broke the law. Joining me now from Toronto to discuss this is one of our political correspondents, Brian Lilly. Brian, it was a close vote at 5-4.
Yeah, and only at 5-4 because a Liberal decided to vote with the opposition and say, I want to see the ethics commissioner here. But he explained that it's because he thinks the ethics commissioner is wrong. This is Nathaniel Erskine-Smith. He's just outside of the downtown core of Toronto, Liberal MP. And he said, the ethics commissioner is wrong, and I want to talk to him about his legal reasoning. They knew they had the votes even without him. So he was able to vote and side with the opposition on that. But in the end, the ethics commissioner is not coming forward. Now, look, from an ethical point of view, I think this is the wrong move. Absolutely the wrong move. If you're looking at it purely from a strategy point of view, a bare knuckles politics point of view, it's probably the right one. They're going to take a lot of flack for saying, no, we don't need to hear from the ethics commissioner anymore. Look, the ethics committee will regularly hear from the ethics commissioner Anytime they put out a report, it's like saying that the finance committee or public accounts won't hear from the auditor general. They do that all day. Oh, you have a report? Come on by. We'll talk to you. But the Liberals knew that if they allowed this to happen, it would just keep questions going. Not that I think questions have disappeared or will disappear on this, but the fact is they chose what they saw as the lesser evil, I guess.
Federal Conservative leader Andrew Scheer says the Mounties need to be called to investigate. Now, former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould was already contacted by the RCMP, I believe it was last spring.
Yeah, she was contacted. She didn't say exactly when, but she did say in the spring, so it'd be sometime after March. She testified at the end of February. Things moved on from there, and she was eventually contacted. She was asked, okay, well, what did they talk to you about? And she said, well, I won't get into the details. Who else called you? And she said, I can't really talk about it at the moment. So the simple fact of the matter is we don't know much more than that. I've been calling for an RCMP investigation since February 10th. I looked it up the other day. This story broke on February 7th, and I've been calling for a police investigation since February the 10th. I'm not the only one. As half a dozen former attorneys general at provincial and federal levels across the Conservatives, the New Democrats, and Liberals have said the same, that there should be a police investigation. Michael Bryant, former Liberal under Dalton McGuinty in Ontario, said ordinary Canadians have been charged for obstruction of justice for far less than we have information for here. So it's, it will be surprising if the RCMP don't, but will we find out about it during the election? If we do, that poses a big problem for the Liberals. They're hoping to skate by and say, well, the polls aren't really changing on this, but if a police investigation happens, they're done.
Yeah, I mean, that's very surprising that the recent polls show that little has actually changed amongst voters right now, but still that SNC-Lavalin affair is bad news for our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, a whole pile of polls out over the last few days on this showing that there hasn't really been much in the way of movement. And so whether you're talking about Ipsos that has the Conservatives ahead by 2, I think it's 35-33, or DART, which is a firm that I work with, it's 39-32. But that's, the Liberals held their own compared to late June's polling numbers, and the Conservatives were up by 2. But that's partly because in Alberta, they were polling at 77%. Well, they're going to win all the seats in Alberta already. So, running up the score, as you might say, doesn't really help them. So it's going to be interesting to see, where things fall out. But I will point to this. The DART poll that I reported on the other day showed that only 26% of Canadians thought Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have done a good job and deserve to be reelected. That means that the number of people thinking he deserves to be reelected is less than the number of people saying they will vote for him by 6 points. Well, if you lose those 6 points, or you only lose half of them because people are like, well, yeah, I want to vote Liberal, but the polling station, it's way over there, Hal. I got to go over there. I'm going to stay on the couch. That becomes a problem for any party. It's called a voter enthusiasm gap, and the Liberals are kind of facing that at the moment.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see how many people head out to the polls. Here in Alberta, we had record numbers because people really wanted a change in government. So we'll see what happens come October 21st. Now, Brian, some people have been asking when this scandal first broke, why didn't the Liberals replace Trudeau and rebuild the party's image with a new leader leading up to the fall election? Is it too late now?
Well, definitely now it's too late, and they still think that they have a fighting chance. And I will not count the Liberals out. I think they have a very difficult path to form a majority government at this point, but they could win the most seats and try to govern with a minority, especially one propped up with Elizabeth May and the Greens, perhaps the New Democrats, perhaps the Bloc Québécois on certain bills. Stephen Harper was able to negotiate for, about 4 years, more than 4 years, over 2 different minority governments. So the Trudeau Liberals could do that, but it's going to be a tough road for them to hoe. Back in February, they thought that they would be able to skate by this, that this would not actually turn into the disaster that they thought it, or that the opposition thought it would be. Turns out the opposition was right. Sure, the Liberals have bounced back a bit in the polls, but not enough. They're nowhere near majority territory at this point. And if you had told me on the day after the election day, about October 20th of 2015, if you had told me then Justin Trudeau would be in a difficult spot for re-election, I would have thought you were crazy. I thought for sure this guy was a two-term majority winner. Campaigns matter, and we've still got about 60-odd days to go, Hal.
A guy who has the nickname Jihadi Jack may be coming to Canada. Brian, what do we need to know about this guy?
Jihadi Jack, yes, that is the nickname given to Jack Letts. Born and raised in England, he is definitely a Brit. He's not a Canadian, but his father was born in Canada, and therefore he has claim on Canadian citizenship. He's never lived here. He's been here several times, but this is a young man who, at the age of 18, had converted to Islam already for a few years, taught himself Arabic so he could read the Quran, and took on what many would call a perverse view of Islam, and decided to go to Syria and wound up, he says, oh no, I never joined ISIS, but he does admit that he was with what he described as a Muslim mafia and some really bad guys. And he admits that, at different times in an interview with the BBC, he talked about how, I thought about being a suicide bomber. He said, I didn't want to strap it onto myself with a vest, though. I thought I'd do it with a car. Okay, I don't really care how you're doing it. I don't want a suicide bomber living next to me. But he's been sitting in the Kurdish jail for the last 2.5 years, and the Brits just revoked his British citizenship. They said, he's a terrorist, we're revoking it, he can go to Canada. He has very tenuous ties to Canada, but suddenly the Liberal government, which for years has said a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian, this is the Liberal government that gave Zachariah Amara, one of the people behind the Toronto 18 plot, they gave him his citizenship back after the Harper government had revoked it. They're now trying to run away from Jihadi Jack. Not a nice guy. I put out a column the other day that detailed many of his quotes, and including he said at one point, just because I don't like ISIS, I'm paraphrasing, but just because I don't like ISIS doesn't mean I'm with, and I quote, you, the dirty non-Muslims. So not a guy you want living next door.
Trans Mountain says it is mobilizing their workforce, and the pipeline should be completed by the year 2022. But Brian, we've seen the song and dance before, and Alberta Premier Jason Kenney says we shouldn't get that excited just yet, since there could be more delays.
Yeah, and I'm with Premier Kenney on this. Look, all the attempts to shut this down through judicial proceedings, through protests, through absolutely everything else, the idea that this pipeline will be done in 2022 is, well, a pipe dream, pardon the pun. I'd love to see it done by then. I'd love to see the construction get underway. But when you have so many groups looking to stop this, and the courts are just ripe for them, and we don't have a federal government that has the backbone to try and help push it through and invoke federal powers, I don't see it happening. Maybe, after the election, and I'm saying it could happen with either the Liberals or the Conservatives. One of them could push it through. More likely the Conservatives than the Liberals, but either one could. Maybe, but at this point, I still don't see it happening, and I'm with Premier Kenney. Don't get too excited just yet.
As protests in Hong Kong continue, a statement by Canada has created a further rift with China and demands that Chrystia Freeland be removed as Foreign Affairs Minister.
Chrystia Freeland putting out a joint statement between Canada and the European Union, and really invoking the ire of China. I mean, China can be pretty thin-skinned on these things, but it was a decent statement. And Chrystia Freeland, even though she is part of a government whose foreign policy I disagree with on many fronts, I think they played footsie far too long with China before getting into this spat. When it comes to standing up for democracy, she does a pretty good job. I mean, the woman was banned in Russia, or as the Beatles would have sang, banned in the USSR. So she's now raised the ire of China. They want her removed as Foreign Affairs Minister. Their official state media calling for that. Well, good on her for that. Unfortunately, we've spent far too long giving the Chinese government, credence, giving them credit in ways that they didn't deserve. Now, I have to tell you, Hal, I was shocked. I think it was last weekend. Yeah, last weekend, there were demonstrations here in Toronto in favor of those protesting for their democratic rights in China, in Hong Kong, but there were counter-protesters in almost equal numbers showing up to cheer on the regime in Beijing. And one of the people that is supporting the regime in Beijing, former Ontario Liberal Cabinet Minister Michael Chan. So shame on him, and shame on everyone that showed up to back a repressive regime.
After giving Loblaws around $12 million for new freezers, the Trudeau government has apparently now given a multi-million-dollar loan to a billionaire family. Tell me more about that.
Oh, worse than that, Hal. They're forgiving the loan. They're forgiving the loan. So It was a loan. It was a non-repayable contribution, voluntarily repaid contribution. What are these crazy economic development things? I mean, why do the Irvings, this is a company owned by the Irvings. They own everything in New Brunswick that the McCain family does not. By the way, I was going to say everything but potatoes, but they own Cavendish Farms, so they kind of own half the potato crop as well. They own the shipyards, they own the refineries, they own the media. This family does not need to be getting loans from the federal government, but not only did they get the loan, but now the government is forgiving a $7 million loan to the Irvings. And you think about what it's like if you owe the government money and then you say, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense, nor is it right. It's completely unethical in my view.
You know, my son's got these big student loans. Maybe I should talk to the Liberals about forgiving that one too. Like a lot of students probably want to do, the province and the federal government.
Absolutely.
PPC leader Maxime Bernier has been banned from official debates. Meanwhile, the number of debates continues to grow, Brian.
Yeah, so the official debates, they've announced who's going to moderate them. They've announced who's invited, but they will not be inviting, at this point, Maxime Bernier. They say he doesn't qualify in a couple of points, and they're looking to see maybe there's another way, and maybe if some polling's done, and if you jump down, turn around, count to 3, maybe he can jump in. Maybe he can get into that. I'm not going to hold out hope. Look, I was of the opinion that Elizabeth May never should have been in the debates because she doesn't have official party status. That's my view. If you're a lone MP, I don't think you belong in the leaders' debate. You know, do we allow Aaron Weir, the guy that now identifies as a CCF MP? Well, does he now get to go and show up at the leaders' debate? What about the Communist Party or the Marxist-Leninist Party, which is different than the Communists? I mean, there are literally hundreds of parties that will run across the country. You have to draw the line somewhere. Nothing against Max, but you know, I think that we do have to have a standard somewhere. As for the growing debates, well, at first it was just, you know, Justin Trudeau just wanted these official debates by a broadcast consortium. Well, then they had the Monk debates come out and say, well, we want one just like we had last time. We want one on foreign affairs, and we're going to hold it on this date, and we're inviting all the leaders. So far, Andrew Scheer has said he'll show up, but we haven't heard from the others. Then the other day, Maclean's Magazine and City TV, both part of the Rogers Empire, they said, well, we ran a debate last time. We want to do it again. And so they've announced their date, and they're inviting all the leaders. Theirs would be the earliest in September. We'll see if they jump in. In my view, if I'm Justin Trudeau, I'm avoiding as many debates as I can, but we'll see what happens over the coming weeks.
Brian, social media has exploded with the fact that some of the moderators may be Liberal sympathizers and they may be slipping Justin Trudeau some of the questions ahead of the debates. What have you heard?
I don't think that they'll be slipping Justin Trudeau the questions ahead of the debates. I wouldn't go that far. But when you look at the fact that you've got Althea Raj from Huffington Post, very much with a left-wing bent. You've got Susan Delacourt, who only wears red shoes because it's close to the party that she supports. And, you know, she's been identified with the Liberals for a long time. She's from the Toronto Star. Rosemary Barton from CBC. I mean, we all know which way CBC lands. So at least 3 out of the 5. I wouldn't put Lisa LaFlamme and Donna Friesen. Lisa LaFlamme, of course, CTV, Donna Friesen from Global. I wouldn't put them in the same camp as the other 3, but 3 out of the 5 are definitely left-wing politically. I think it shows up in their work. Look, nobody would say Brian Lilley does not lean to the conservative side. And you know that going in, but these guys don't declare which way they lean. They claim to be neutral. I don't buy them being neutral for a moment, and I don't think the audience should. And I'm a little skeptical of this quote unquote official debate with the official moderators.
One of our regular contributors, Brian Lilley, joining me once again from Toronto. Thanks so much, Brian.
Thank you.
For anyone who wears mascara, you know the name, Maybelline, a makeup giant. Now, there's an interesting story behind this company, and our guest today has written a book on it. Sherry Williams is the great niece of the company's founder and author of The Maybelline Story and the spirited family dynasty behind it. Sherry, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Maybelline has been around a very long time and has a lot of success. Are people interested in hearing more about the family story?
It seems like they're more interested in the family story than the corporate story or the business story. Even though a lot of people love the success, they're interested in the drama behind it.
Now, is it actually true that Tom Lyle got the idea of the eye makeup from seeing his sister Mabel fixing her eyelashes with coal and Vaseline after she accidentally singed herself?
Yes, that is definitely true. She was mixing some ash from a cork and a little Vaseline and put it on her eyelashes and eyebrows. And Tom Lyle walked in and said, "You look like the silent film stars." He worked in the Nickelodeon, so he was amazed to see those eyes. And he said, "Is there anything like this on the market that women could buy?" And she said, "No, they have lipstick and rouge." But eyes were the most ignored part of a woman's face in 1915. So he went to a chemist and came out with his first little product called Lash Brow Een, and then changed it to Maybelline in honor of his sister who gave him the idea.
Wow, fascinating story. So how old was your great uncle when he started the mail order makeup company?
19. He's basically a teenager.
That's incredible. So
I
graduating high
know.
school and then starting this big company, that must have been quite
He
the
didn't.
undertaking for a teenager, right?
Well, no, but he didn't even graduate high school.
Oh,
He only went through the 10th grade. And he knew that he wanted to be an entrepreneur. And he kept trying to figure out different products that would launch. And this little idea launched.
that's incredible. Probably get all of his sister's best friends or all of his sister's friends as clients off the top. Now, I understand that Tom Lyle had already tried and failed 3 times at getting a business going. Is that true?
Well, yes, he had these ideas. He was trying to think of something. And so he had gag gifts. You know, he would sell in the classifieds these gag gifts. And that didn't work. And then he tried selling another kind of product that he didn't realize how much the shipping would be on it. So it was like vegetables or something with a farmer. He thought, oh, that's what it's going to be. People need, food. But he didn't realize that the shipping killed him. And so when he finally did come up with this idea, he needed the money. And his brother said, "You've already failed. I don't want to give you the money." He goes, "Just give me one chance." And it took right off. Pretty close.
So once the eye makeup business got started, yeah, I guess it really took off. What was it that really got customers' attention?
Silent films. See, they both were born at the same time. The silent film industry was just in its infancy, but women were for the first time seeing those eyes on the screen. And they were made up heavily with kohl. And women began to notice those eyes. And Tom Lyle just said, "We got to put this in the classifieds because, women will buy this." Not all women, actually flappers. Flappers, prostitutes, good, I know, good women on the street did not buy Maybelline in the beginning because a virtuous woman would not put anything on her eyes.
So you're talking about silent films. Did any Hollywood starlets at that time or maybe Hollywood producers reach out to your great uncle and say,
Well,
hey, we want your product?
well, actually, he reached out to them because what he used for marketing Maybelline was the silent film stars and then the big stars of the 30s and 40s. And so, no, you never saw a picture of Tom Lyle. He was always represented by a Hollywood star.
That's amazing. Now, a lot of the family actually joined in with the family business early on, correct?
Well, yes, because they all lived in a little flat above the first little factory that they had. All of them, mom and dad, 5 kids, and they went to the post office every day with satchels, and they had to carry the mail back because the mail was causing such a problem at the post office. They said, "You got to come down here and bring your bag." So the whole family with a wheelbarrow and everything, went down there, lugged it, brought it to the kitchen table, took the gum and glue off of it, took the quarters off, sent the product back. That's how they started.
Let's talk about some of the more unique marketing techniques that your great uncle used. Talk a bit about that.
Well, marketing, his claim to fame was advertising. He would like to be remembered as the king of advertising because he was, even though he didn't get a diploma from high school, he had some other brilliance. You know, he was always a step ahead of what a woman wanted. Now, he was gay. I mean, I guess you know that, right? Even though he had a child, was married, and it was annulled. But his whole thing with women is he could sense ahead of the market what they wanted. So he didn't just target one market. He targeted every single market all the way through for the 50 years that he was with Maybelline. And every different ad would appeal to this market or that market or your grandmother, your mother, you know, your teenagers in the early 60s. So I think that and he was also the first of so many products. He was the first to have, now you walk into a dime store, um, and you see twirling, you know, the twirling with all the products on it. Well, that was his idea. And other ideas that were innovative that they use now, that's no big deal, like putting bubble wrap when you go in and you buy a product and it's on a cardboard, and that was his idea. So he was very innovative besides being a advertising genius.
Were there any other companies that maybe looked towards to get some creative marketing inspiration early on?
Oh, no, no, no. He bought up little companies. Maybelline was the first. Before 1925, there was no word for mascara. It was called, mascara was called Maybelline. Like a girl would say, I need to order some Maybelline. That would mean I need to order some mascara. So no, any little product, any little company that would come on the market, he quickly bought them up, especially after the Depression, because nobody could compete with his marketing genius.
Like any new startup company, though, there are a lot of lows. I mean, it takes a lot of work, a lot of grunt work to get it going. What are some of the obstacles that your great uncle run into as he tried to market his product line?
Well, the biggest one was when he first came out with his first product, it was called Lash Brow In. And he was sued by another little cosmetic eyelash company that was called something very similar to that. And so that was the first obstacle that he had right off the bat, was that he had to, which was the main reason he renamed it Maybelline. But other obstacles that he had was the fact that he was gay. It it, it was a it was almost the government tried to stop anybody in the women's cosmetic industry that was gay. So that was another reason why he hid behind the gates of the Rudolph Valentino villa, he and his partner of 50 years. And there were just other, the Depression. He lost everything. All the first money that he made in the banks closed, but he didn't stop. At that moment, he decided, I'm not going to continue putting it in the classifieds or the back of magazines. We're going to put it into drugstores. We're going to lower the price. We may not have the volume. I mean, they were 75 cents. He lowered it to 10. He made the mascara a little smaller, and any woman, even during the Depression, could afford 10 cents. So that was another genius thing.
Did Tom Lyle Williams ever consider giving up on his dream? Did he ever come to the point saying, you know what, I'm out, this is too difficult?
He worried all the time. He was a great worrier, but he was also a Catholic. He prayed all the time. He would get down on his knees every night. He would ask for guidance. And there was one time when the company, I would say maybe 1940s or late 30s, during the Depression, he wanted to sell the company to a big conglomerate in New York. So he went up to New York with one of the people that worked with him, and Rags Raglan, and Rags said, you can't sell. This is just the beginning. There's the moon to go to. We got to shoot for the moon. So he always had people talk him off the cliff. But yeah, he'd get scared. He'd get scared because it was growing so big. And you know, when companies grow big, you either have to get more products, you have to have more money and put it. It's not easy.
So what did he say to the naysayers that said, you know what, this is never going to work, this will never take off?
Well, he'd had that in the very beginning. They said he's a dreamer. He's never going to make anything of himself. He's a loser. And that's why he was forced to have his marriage annulled, because they said he's never going to make anything of himself. So what he did was he left home and he went to Chicago and he moved into a boarding house and he worked 24 hours a day and he never stopped.
Your great uncle sold the company in 1967 and the family made a big profit from this. How did the sudden wealth actually impact the family?
Oh, well, of course, it was exciting in the beginning, but so many tragedies happened. I mean, everybody thinks they want to win the lottery and, they just dream of having a windfall of a lot of money. But uh, we didn't even know. Tom Lyle left all of his money to his family and the people that worked for him, so that they became millionaires overnight. The guy who started in the stock room with him in the beginning, he got a check for $1 million. So we all went out to our mailboxes that day, and there was checks in there for several million, whatever it was. And I don't think that we were prepared. We were just like a regular little middle class family, very close, very loving. I went to Lutheran school until the 8th grade, I mean, kind of like really innocent. And when that money came, it just blew everyone apart. And there were a lot of tragedies. My mother's uh, fell into mental illness. She could not deal with the transition, especially my father, because every woman in town was interested in him at that point. And my grandmother took off with a gigolo and was killed, in Hot Springs, Arkansas, in a arson-related fire. So, I mean, it's just been so hard. But now I have a daughter and grandchildren, and they're more normal than, because I grew up with such glamour and, you know.
Now, there were some con artists. There were con artists as well that tried to swindle some family members out of their wealth, too. Tell me more about that.
That was my grandmother. She was 74 and he was 10 years younger. Took her to Hot Springs, Arkansas, away from Newport Beach, California, where the family lived, to Hot Springs, Arkansas, during the time of Clinton had just become governor. She opened a dinner palace, and no one knows if it was the mafia or her business partner, but 3 bombs went off in her house the next day, and she was burned beyond recognition. And that was our Nana, you know. So
Now, Sherry, tell me about this book that you wrote as well. It doesn't happen on its own. What was the most difficult part for you in putting this together?
staying with it, because it took me many, many years. My first inkling of an idea to do it was when I was 15. There was a lot more story that was going to unfold before I finally did it. Also, I think getting a publisher, was challenging, and editing was really difficult, but it all came together after so many years. It was synchronicity, because a friend of mine met a publisher and introduced me to them, and over time the book was published. So, but that, not giving up. I've written a second book right now, and we are in the midst of showing it for possible miniseries along with the first book. And right now, even, it's like I go, oh, this is so hard. Do I want to keep pushing and having disappointments and all of that goes with anything that you really want? But one day at a time. I live life, and a phone call comes, an email has to be answered, I have to show up someplace. I just do it and kind of let destiny take its course.
Should aspiring authors expect a lot of rejection and closed doors?
Yes. Yes. Nowadays, the big publishing companies, just like the big production companies, aren't what they used to be. It's more like independent productions now, on Netflix and Amazon and Apple. And it's the same with publishing. Just don't be afraid to self-publish your own book and market it. You make sure you've got your website, your blog, your Twitter, all those things you can do, just like my great uncle did. It's just that he did it in classified magazines. Now you do it in social media. But yes, if you have the desire and you put that work in every day, don't you think it's like destiny? Something will happen if you don't give up.
And for our female viewers, do you have any beauty secrets you can pass along?
Well, my grandmother, Miss Maybelline, the one that was killed in the fire, she would create this beauty mask, and it is really incredible. It's a face mask like a mud pack. And you just mix a little bit of, say, flour, mostly like oat flour or rice flour, a little bit of yogurt. Put those things together and put that on your face and let it dry, and it just brings all the blood to the surface and just feeds the skin. And when you wash that thing off, your skin is just so smooth. That's one of my favorite secrets.
I may have to try that myself. Sherry Williams, author of The Maybelline Story and the spirited family dynasty behind it. Thanks a lot for joining me today from California.
My pleasure.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.